Welcome to That PC Tech, and today we're going to talk about mirroring your hard drive so that you can install Windows on it. Normally Microsoft doesn't allow you to do this because mirrored drives are dynamic drives and they don't like it being able to boot off of dynamic drives, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyway, and this way you'll be able to protect your system because you'll have two hard drives running your operating system and your system reserved area, which is your restoration area, and they'll be mirrored and backed up, and so if one of the drive fails you can pull it out and still operate with one drive while you go get another one and put back in there. And so I'm going to get right into it, and you can see I've already booted my machine up, and for this purpose I'm going to assume you already have a hard drive, a computer with two hard drives in it, and if not, you can use a virtual machine like I'm going to do for demonstration purposes here. But we're ready to go. If you want to pause it and go set your system up, you can do that. You follow along step by step, or you can just watch it and whatever you want to do. Okay, so we're going to have to do all this manually, and so I'm going to show you the tips and tricks on how to do that. And so we're going to get right into it. So we've gotten to the point where we've started Windows setup already. Okay, that's all we've done. We've just booted the computer from a Windows setup disk. Okay, we haven't clicked any other buttons or anything else like that. We haven't done any other tricks. I'm going to show you the very first thing, and so what we're going to do is we are going to press Shift F10 to open a command prompt as an administrator. There are no other kinds of users on this computer at this point. So there's the command prompt. Okay, so in here we're going to go into disk part. Okay, and once we're in disk part, we can start listing disks and see what's in there. So you see I have two 40 gigabyte disks here. They're both online. They're completely empty. 40 gigabytes free, 40 gigabyte size. But the first thing we have to do with that to make it work is we have to convert these disks to dynamic disks. Mirrored disks are dynamic disks. There's no way around that. But despite what Microsoft says, you can boot from a dynamic disk. Okay, so we're going to do that right now. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to select disk 0. Then we're going to clean it. Then we're going to convert it to a dynamic. Then we're going to do the same thing to disk number 1. Now remember, the disks are numbered starting with 0. So 0 is our first disk, number 1 is our second disk. So we're going to select disk number 1 now. And we're going to convert it to dynamic, clean it and convert it to dynamic as well. Okay, so now we've got two clean disks, and they're both set up for dynamic, and I'll list it so you can see it. Okay, all these steps that we're doing are going to be in the description below, so you'll be able to follow along. All right, and besides what I have on the screen as well. All right, so now we're going to go and start preparing mirrors. Okay, so we've done the first part of converting the disk to dynamic. Now we're going to prepare our mirrors. So the first thing we'll do is select disk 0 again to put the focus back on disk 0. And then we're going to create a volume mirror on that disk, and it's going to mirror from disk 0 to disk 1. This one is going to be the 550 megabyte system reserved area. I'm making it 550 because newer operating systems require a little more space. The older ones only required about 500. So the newest one that I just did with Windows Server 2019 was 549. So I'm going to give it a little extra space. So we're going to create volume mirror from disk 1. And let me move this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. From disk 0 to disk 1, and really it's a two-way mirror, so it doesn't. We're starting on disk 0. It's fine. Okay, just as long as both numbers are in there, and then we're setting the size at 550 megabytes. Don't forget the equal sign, and don't put any spaces in here. Okay, so now we're going to format it. File system is going to be NTFS. You could try REFS, which is the newest one from Microsoft. It's the Resilient File System, but for our purposes we don't need it. I'm just going to stick with this for now, and I'm going to give it the label so that we can recognize what partition and what volume this is later on when we look at it. So we're going to go label it as system reserved. Here you're required to have a quotation marks because there are two words in here with a space in it. It's always a good practice anyway. Okay. So it's done. Now we're going to do the second mirror. This is mirror 0. Then we'll do the second mirror, which is right here. This part here, we're going to do the operating system now. We're going to put your operating system, we're going to make the space for the operating system now. So we're going to go back to select the disk again. Then we're going to create. And we're going to give it a bigger size this time. I have 40 gigabyte hard drives in here. 40 gigabytes minus the 550 megabytes. So the way I'm going to figure it is 40 gigabytes times 1,000 gigabytes per 1,000 megabytes per gigabyte. Some hardware manufacturers quote it as that. Some say 1024, which is the binary way of representing it, but not everybody does. So I'm going to be on the safe side and only say 1,000 megabytes per gigabyte. So 40,000 megabytes minus your 550 megabytes is going to be 39,450. And if you want to be a little more safer, you could even drop one off of that. So our size is 39,450 megabytes. Okay, so it created the volume. If you know that the two disks that you're using are identical in size, then you can even leave off that size amount and it will fill up the whole drive with fill up the remaining space with this volume. If you're using two drives that come from different manufacturers, they might not have reported the size the same way, so you could end up having a failure if you do that. So it's better to err on the side of safety and specify them down smaller. If you're using a virtual machine and you're creating virtual drives, they're going to be identical, so you can leave that space off. In my case, when I built a physical server recently, I used two older hard drives, and the two hard drives said 40 gigabytes, but they weren't exactly the same number of megabytes. So that's why I'm doing this, and that's just to let you know to avoid that pitfall. Alright, so now we're going to format that. And we're going to give it the label for Windows, because this is going to be your Windows volume. Okay? So now if we go back and list the volume, well, when it gets done here, it takes a minute. Okay. We'll see three volumes. Volume 0 here, this is the CD-ROM, or the installation media that we are using. The volume 1 is your Windows volume. Volume 2 is your system reserved volume. You see volume 1 is currently active. Okay, so now we're going to start and make these things usable. So we're going to start by going back to disk 1. I'm sorry. Select disk 0, our first disk. We're going to detail it so we see what's on it. Okay, so now you can see here, there's a whole lot of information you have. It'll tell you what kind of hardware interface. It'll tell you if it's online or not. There's all these different things on there. Right now it's not a boot disk. So you see right there, it's not a boot disk. Okay, but we're going to take care of that. We're going to make it into a boot disk. But the important part we want to see right now is volume 1 is Windows, volume 2 is system reserved. Okay, so now that we've detailed it, we're going to select that volume 1, the Windows volume. Alright, and we're going to retain it. Okay, so now let's do that detail disk again. to select that disk. See how important it is to select the disk and give it back its focus? Okay, see, it still says no on the boot disk. So we don't care. We're taking care of that as we go along. All right, so now we've done the, let me roll back up here a little bit. We retained it, so that's where we were right there. Now we're going to do this, the next bit on making the making volume 2, the Windows partition usable. The partition usable. First time we did the volume, now we're going to do the partition. So we're going to select disk 0 again. Then we're going to list the partition. It's different than listing volumes. Okay, so we have 3 partitions. We have our system reserve partition of 550 megabytes. We have our Windows partition of 38 gigabytes. And we have a leftover 958 megabytes, almost a gigabyte. I'm not worried about it. We've got plenty of space to spare on this hard drive. This is just going to contain our operating system for now. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, since we've listed the partitions now, we're going to select partition 2, which is our Windows partition here, and we're going to make it active. What did I do? Let me go back. Select disk 0, list partition, select. Oh, I had a typo here. I forgot the R right there. So let me just go up and fix that. Alright, so partition 2 is now selected. Now we make it active. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing on disk 1. Disk number 1, not disk 0. And you see it's the same way as the other one was. SATA, different disk ID, still not bootable. Volumes 1 and 2 are in the same order. Volume 1 is your Windows areas. Volumes 2 is your system reserved area. Alright, so we're going to select volume 1. And we're going to make it, we're going to retain it. Okay, then we're going to go back and select disk. I see I have to move this. I'll have it moved when we go into the, when it's in the description below. So, I'm going to go back and select disk 1 again. Then we're going to select partition 2. Okay, and we're going to make that one active. Difference between the volume. Selected the volume there, we selected the partition here. Okay, so now we're going to make these mirrored Windows volumes usable on both disks. Okay, so we're going to go select disk 0, select the volume 0, retain it. Then we're going to select disk 1. I'm going to select volume 0 on that one, and we're going to retain that. Okay, so now we can exit, or let's take a look. Let's detail disk 1 or disk 0 and detail it. Okay, so now you see it still says boot disk no. That's because Windows, when you do the setup in Windows, they want to set everything for you. It will not do it just based on this alone. This is only getting it ready so that Windows can make it a bootable disk. Alright, so the next step is we're going to exit from disk part, we're going to exit from the command prompt, and then we're going to continue with the Windows setup process. But both of these disks are mirrored right now. They're set exactly the same. And we'll see how that works here in a minute. So we'll exit from disk part, exit from command prompt. Now we're back at this point here on our setup screen, and we can continue as normally until we get to the point where we're going to assign where to install the operating system. So we hit next, we hit install. This is on a virtual machine. I'm doing this for evaluation purposes, so I'm not going to enter a key. I'm just going to say I don't have a product key. I could always enter one later if I wanted to. And I'm going to select which version of the software I'm going to put in. I might as well go with the big guy. Data center version, volume license, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to hit next here. It's going to get ready, and then it's going to take a look at the hard drives that are available to it and ask me where I want to install. Okay. Oh, and first I have to accept the terms, obviously. So I'm going to do that, and we're going to do a custom install, Windows only. We're not going to do an upgrade because there's nothing there to begin with. Alright, so here we are. Now, one key thing that you have to do is you have to reformat before you can go anywhere. Windows will not automatically format this correctly. So what we're going to do, we'll go up here, and if you notice, you cannot format this first system reserved one. I don't know why, and it doesn't matter. It's not going to make a difference at all. I'm just going to format the Windows partition. Okay, and you see it's going to go. It takes a few seconds, and you see the Windows label is gone off of it now. Not only did it go away here, but it went away from down here as well. So you can tell they are mirrored because the data is working. I mean, the data mirroring process is working. I didn't touch the other one, but yet the label went away at the same time that it went away from here. So we're ready to go. So now this is the 38 gigabyte space, and I'm going to leave that selected, or click it again to make sure it is selected, and we'll hit next, and it will start the install process. And at this point, we're done. This is going to take a little while for this to install. I may speed it up, I may edit and just cut and paste to the end, but you're going to see what's happening here. And we've done this part here where we talked about formatting the first partition, if it will let you. We formatted the larger partition where Windows was installed. Now, when formatting is complete, we made sure that that partition was still selected, the one that we needed for Windows, and then we click next, and we're proceeding as usual. Now, the computer's going to reboot 1 or 2 times, and we're going to see the Windows logo a couple times, and the starting dots and everything, and we're going to finally get presented with the login screen, and our mirrored OS will be ready to roll and working. Hope this helps you out. We have a working Windows system. In fact, this is Windows Server 2019, the newest flagship of Windows servers. And so we're going to go ahead and call it a day here. Hope this helped you out. Thank you very much for watching. If you like it, click the button below. If you don't, tell me so. All right, you have a good night or a good day or whatever, and I will see you in the next video.